Hey everybody, I'm Tony Visco. I'm your host for this session of Painting for Pleasure, and today we're going to do a piece overlooking, actually this is overlooking Plymouth Harbor, or Plymouth, the shores of Plymouth, over down by the waterfront here. We're looking across at Rocky Hill. I've fabricated a couple of different images in here. So the one we're looking at the hill area, which you can probably see up here, and a couple of fishermen down below on the beach. Bert's is just right over here, and a boat in the area, boat in the harbor. So that's basically what our painting is going to be, and we're going to try to be as creative as possible in doing this as upbeat. I already stained this, so we're going to end up. See if I can take that out of there. But anyway, the bottom line to this whole thing is that I'm going to wet this paper anyway, so it doesn't make any difference. But we'll start a step at a time. Here's my background. Here's my sky. Let's get a creative sky in here. Let's just do something that's rather than just a flat sky. Let's just make it a little bit more interesting. Put some clouds in. Maybe, or some, yeah, we'll put some clouds in. Make it light. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take my broad brush, my big brush. I got my nice sky brush, 2-inch brush here, 2 inches. Load it up with water, and we're going to come across and just take care of and do the sky. And I'm going to do this a little differently. I'm going to wet this down a bit, and I'm going to draw it down as I work. So we got that wet just up at the top. I'm not wetting the whole sky now, and we're going to end up probably taking some cerulean blue with the consistency. Here we go here. All right, a little bit thicker than water, maybe milk, and we're going to just start to come down here. Now what I did is I came down just here, just below that area where it's dry, and now I'm going to come in here, and we're going to end up pulling a little bit of this. Now this is dry. Just pull a little bit of this in this area, right down in this area here. So I'm going to leave some of this. Take a little bit of water, let it wick up. And cover this up a bit more here. Just going to add a touch of yellow ochre to the top of this here. Change it up a bit. Okay. And add a little bit of water down here to soften it as it comes down. So, touch of cobalt blue along with this. Add a little bit more cobalt blue in here just to give this some interesting darker areas, so it has some degree of interest, and maybe with the idea of a little bit of water to feather that out. So we got a sparkle, just a little bit of a sparkle up in that area. Okay, so essentially that's my sky. That's what my sky is going to be. And now I have this wonderful area over here. This area is going to be, it's going to be the hillside with a lot of trees on it. It's a roadway up here. Actually, there's a, if we understand where we're really at, right along here, there's a road that's hidden that comes along here to Rocky Point, goes around the other side. But we'll do this a little at a time. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take, instead of my flat brush, I'm going to use this round brush. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to build on this by starting out with, down in this area, by starting out with yellow. A little yellow ochre, very lightly done. Okay, a lot of water, a little yellow ochre right in here. See how watery that is? Nice and light though. And we're going to come along here, because this is the shoreline. And we're gonna boat over there. Make it nice and light. A lot of water, right? And we're gonna sort of bring this up. So like it's just coming up the shore, I'm gonna add a little bit of brightener in here by using a little bit of burnt sienna and some of these areas. Okay, a little bit interesting. A little bit more burnt sienna. Okay, and as I come down near the water, we're going to get the area down here, which actually is all rocky. I'm going to come right in here. This is like a rocky coast. Right, so I'm painting this dry. I've added the burnt sienna to my cobalt blue, my cerulean blue, to get it a little bit on the brownish side. Okay. And let's just come across. Okay. And then as I come over here, what I have in this is I'm going to end up actually coming over and doing this a little bit browner, a little bit more burnt sienna-ish, I should say, not browner. Add a little bit of yellow ochre, burnt sienna, and I'm going to come across with a change up a little bit. See, I'm changing the value up to a warmer value as I come across here. All right, and then we're going to do the same thing, a little bit more burnt sienna, a little bit of cobalt blue, and coming across here in spots. Notice what I'm doing is I'm just leaving some white areas. Which we were going to, after all is said and done, what we'll do is we'll go back in and maybe just lighten those up a bit, but or add some value to them, maybe some lighter yellow. But I want to leave it white for now. All right, and what I'm talking about is land spit that comes out over here. Okay, and we're going to get it a little bit on the redder side as it comes forward, as we come forward. And this is a wet brush on dry paper, all right? Wet brush, wet paint, wet brush on dry paper. All right, maybe even a little bit redder as we come forward. Get it nice and warm. Okay. All right. So, in this area out here, we'll just add a little bit of touch of red. Now, that's the mixture. What I did is I took Pyro Red and mixed it in with my burnt sienna. And once I get this nice and dry, we'll work around it. But now that that's done, what I want to do is I want to fill in the background over here with some green. And the green I'm going to choose, first of all, is I'm going to take a little bit of my cerulean blue and I'm going to add a little bit of new gamboge to it. And we're going to start this feathering up of my green. Right now, ultimately what's going to end up happening here is that as I do this, I'm going to get darker. But again, I'm working on a dry piece of paper, and I'm actually taking watery pigment. Okay, and I'm going to start to come up. Now I have a little bit of a home in here, so I'm just going to come around that. All right. I want to leave that dry. It's coming into the woods. A little yellow, and my combination of my yellow and my cerulean blue, my yellow being a new gamboge, and we're just changing this up as we go. All right, so what I'm doing is I've got a couple of masts here for the sailboat. All right. Now that's actually going into the watered area, and I'm trying to be a bit careful in here. Coming into my dry area, adding a little bit more cobalt blue to this mixture. All right, this is just, as long as this is wet, as long as we're wet, we can keep going. Okay. And we're going to get darker somewhere in this area. Some of it's going to be lighter. My house, excuse me, I don't want to put my head in there. I apologize for that. I want to go around this because I want to leave this white. Leave my area right there white. Just go around that. And again, you see, this is wet down here, so we're just basically mixing this up a bit. Trying to leave certain areas drier, wetter, just changing it up here and there. All right, maybe we got some lighter areas. And in some cases it means working quickly. We want a variation in here. We're looking for variety. Variety of values. Nice and light. Some of these areas will be darker. Essentially the area is pretty green, but in some areas it's going to be lighter because the light shining on it. Okay. So I've got a background, and notice what I've done. This is sort of darker, it's lighter over in this area and warmer down here and a little bit redder over here. Nice and light. Certain areas are going to be lighter. Okay. Okay, so this is still wet. I haven't touched my homes that are up here yet. I'm not going to deal with that. We'll do that later. But the idea behind this is to make sure that we get a sort of a variety, a nice variety of shapes and values that are going to go in here. And some of this stuff is going to be a little bit heavier. For instance, maybe in this area here. And by heavier, I mean more pigment than water. So we'll even make it a little bit darker. I'll take some French ultramarine blue, take my new gamboge and mix some French ultramarine blue with it, take the water out of my brush, and we're going to end up spotting this here and there. A little green, green-brown. Usually what ends up happening on these cliffs is that there's a lot of movement up the cliff, for instance. Let's see. So I'm just getting darker. Actually, what I'm doing is I'm just mixing. See what I'm doing is I'm just mixing paint that's even darker. A little bit of green, a little bit of brown. That is to say, burnt sienna, a little bit of blue, a little bit of yellow together. And trying to give this stuff out, the edging here, a little bit more character. All right. Sort of like squirreling my brush here. Just making arbitrary sort of marks. And I think what I'm going to do is just make this nice and dark over here. A little bit of brown, a little bit more brown in here. Alright, and I'm holding my brush back to keep it loose. Back here in the handle. And as I'm doing this, what I'm doing is I'm sort of squinting. This is still shoreline. So we'll see how that plays out. Maybe we have to go back in and play around with it a little bit more, which we can do. Okay, so my sky's done. My background essentially is done. It's fairly dark. This area right here, that's my tides out, so there's a little bit of a rocky, sort of a rocky path right here, or area with the tides running out. Land is showing. I'm just adding some dark in there. More pigment. This is just to indicate some rocky area. Okay. The same thing that's out here. We got some cliffs. Okay. Remember, I got a boat out there. So what I need to do is I need to put the water in right now. And I want to paint the water wet. So to paint it wet, I'm just wetting. I'm going to leave a slight light white area to trap against that shoreline. Okay. And so let's get a little bit of this slight cobalt, very light. You can see what I'm talking about. Okay. Very, very light. Now my fishing rod is there, but it's going to be dark against that, so we can just go right over that. Probably go over the people too, but we'll trap them. A little bit more cobalt blue. Okay. A little bit darker. And all right, so we're going to end up coming down here where the shore is as well. So we're going to do something over here in terms of the shoreline. Okay, the shoreline is going to be cobalt blue. But with a little bit of brown in it. Okay, so get this feeling where this whole stuff, everything in front of me here is a lot cooler. A little bit darker, probably make this even browner, but we have water coming up here. What's happening is that the water's coming up on the shore. This is a sort of a sandy beachy area, I guess. And I'm going to come on right up in this area here. Now we're going to paint some rocks on top of that, and I'm going to make those rocks a lot darker. Alright, so we got roughly my painting where I want it to be. We're going to carefully come in here and I'm going to remove. I just went over this fella here, so we're going to end up coming over here and removing some of this value that I just put in there. And we're doing that, and I'm going to probably end up having a reflection of these guys in the water. The sand is like very, very, very moist, very reflective because it's just the water that's up there. And so we're just trying to get this all cleared out. So we're actually removing some of that value that's there, okay? And the same thing that's going to hold through here with the fishing rod. Okay. So we've got some stuff going on over here. We got a sailboat that's in there that's going to end up drying. We have to do that. So we can start to look at maybe putting in some, take a little bit of this. Maybe what I'm doing is I'm actually coming in here and picking up a little bit of my Naples yellow, and I'm going to touch some of that in some of these light areas, just ever so slightly. Also going to do a little bit of Naples yellow mixed with a little bit of my cadmium yellow. We got basically what's happening is that in these areas over here there's a lot of sun that's basically on the homes that are up in here. So just to get some color in there, I'm just putting some in and dabbing it out. A little bit of this house that's right here, maybe a little bit of a gray roof. Well, in order to do a gray roof, we have to do a gray roof. We have to get a little bit of brown. Have to mix this up. My little bit of blue, a little bit of brown, just very lightly. We'll make that a gray roof right there, maybe one up here. We'll probably enhance this one a bit too. Little house that's right there. Maybe something there. And you know what we'll do is we'll just put a little bit of let's just do a little bit of a dark area, dark spot here and there. just to give an impression that there's a couple of homes that are up there. Now we're going to make some, and get a little bit of darker areas in here. For instance, maybe right against this baby here. We're just gonna sort of put some stuff in here to bring out some interest in the back areas here. And again, not necessarily everywhere and not necessarily tightly either, because some of this free-flowing kind of stuff is very good. You know, we have trees that are in the area. And when I'm taking this yellow ochre now, just to do some of this not much. Okay. Cliffs. Now we have this white boat. The hull is white. So let's just paint around it. Let's just take a little bit of a dark area and let's just come in here . What I'm doing is I'm painting the white boat by basically negative painting. Painting the stuff behind it. Okay, so we got that little white boat in there. And what I have to do is I have to just, I'm not sure I can even do this right now. Maybe we can. Then I want to take some of this streaky stuff. Gonna remove that. So let's get a drier brush. One that I can sort of scrub out. and see if I can remove that. You can see I can have to cut some of this paper off over here because the dead area. Just gonna remove some of this. A lot of water and scrape it out. What I'm doing is I'm just taking out that light mask. Sailboat mast. Okay. Sailboat mast. And I don't know if I can do this. We can try. But what I'm doing is I'm carefully putting in the rigging on the boat by removing the value of the land behind it. Alright, anyway, we'll see where that goes. I think I may have to make my boat a little bit bigger here. Okay, so I got some of it removed anyway. Let's go back and make this thing a little bit darker here. Little shadow. Little shadow under here. Alright, darker hole. Usually what ends up happening is that shadows are in blue, so we're going to put a little bit of shadow in here. Okay. Need to change this up a bit. Make some of this a little darker. Okay. Need a little bit more gutsy, I think. So I'm going to mix up a little bit of burnt sienna, French ultramarine blue, and give myself a little bit more dark areas here. Nice thin line coming down. All right. How about a couple of big boulders at the end here? Maybe? I don't know. Just to create some more interest. A few real dark ones. Maybe we'll just change this house up here. Maybe make it a red house just to pop that out a little bit more. Alrighty, so what do we have? It's kind of nice. Let's get this a little bit more interesting here in the foreground. The beach. So what I'm doing is I'm lightly putting in some of this sand, darker sand. Nice. I'm just mixing, actually it's just the gray stuff that I have on my palette, the combination of mixtures of blues and browns. I'm going to make this all brown over here. And along the water here too. Combination of browns and blues. And what I'm really doing is I'm going to take some blue here, some cerulean blue, and I'm going to sort of just glaze over this. We have my beach area. And I'm going to I'll probably just come in here and remove some of this stuff once it dries. I'm going to do a little bit of glazing right in here too as well. Okay, now let's get this nice fine stick up in the air. That's the fishing rod. We'll fix that in a minute because I gotta wait till that dries. But we can, while we're waiting, take a look at, we'll take a little bit of what do we want to take? Alright, a little bit of opera and a little bit of my Naples yellow together. Mix up this fleshy tone. We got this guy over here that's, I'm using my guide, so he's basically shirtless. And we're dragging them down into the reflections in the water. Okay, so maybe a couple of dark swim trunks. All right. And I don't know, maybe that guy has on some, we might leave it white shirt, I don't know, white slacks. I don't know what we want to do with him. We have a white shirt, this guy's white here, so I think maybe we'll just make it a light. Maybe a purple shirt, how's that? Let's do a little bit of a purplish shirt. All right. couple of these guys just having a ball, just talking. Okay, so we got our rough guys in there for now. I actually may take that out. They may be a little darker. A little bit too wet, a little too loose. Yeah. There we go. Good. We'll put a hat on him when he dries. Right. Okay, what else do we have to do here? Got to clean up a lot of this stuff. Maybe make it a little bit more interesting. So, let's take my cobalt blue, very thin brush, my long rigger. A little bit thicker rigger, so we'll just use this one. So what I'm doing is just taking my gray colors that are over here and enhancing this a little bit more. Adding some burnt sienna into my mixture of, actually my mixture of my flesh tones to help enhance this a little bit more, because this is really sort of it's all reflective. So I got a little bit of opera, a little bit of opera, and mixed up with my little Indian yellow. I mean my Naples yellow, and I added a little bit of burnt sienna into this. And if you notice what I'm doing is I'm moving at an angle from, like it's coming up the shore. No, not horizontal, just, okay. So it's sort of coming up the shore a little bit more. And it's just a beachy, shorey. It's with water. What happens with water is it sort of starts to come up the shore. Usually there's always a shadow in and around where the water just starts to hit the shore. Pretty still, pretty good water. I mean, just a ripple. All right. Just a little bit of a ripple. Put a cap on this guy. And how about some hair on the guy's head? Okay. Make them a little bit darker down here. And here. Okay, I'm going to shut. Little accents. Tell you what we'll do. Do a little bit of an accent on the boat right here. And give me some of this nice green. You have to fill in. We'll make this really... Okay, almost done. A little bit of calligraphy now. Let's get a little bit darker stuff in here. I want this house to stand out. Alright. Same way with this. All right. All right. A few things here and there, nothing major. What a well, just put telephone lines. make this darker. Small potatoes, I guess. Just little things. Okay, that's it. Close enough. We'll let it dry and we'll go from there. So I'm back, I'm looking at this thing. Looks okay, looks fine. It's got the right dimensions. Focus is back here. We're looking beyond the fisherman. That's not our primary focus. We'll live with this one. So for now, thank you very much for being with me. I'm your host, Tony Visco, and I appreciate our being able to get together every week to do these sessions. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.